Okay, so good morning or good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking this time to speak with us at Asia Society Korea. We have today with us Vice-Chancellor Nirmala Rao. I know that the bio is going to be up on the website, but thank you again for making time to speak with us today. At this time, do you mind telling us a little bit about your background and how you came to be involved with the Asian University for Women?
Thank you, Sylvia, and thank you, first of all, for giving me this opportunity to address you all and tell you about not only my background, but more importantly about the Asian University for Women and what it stands for. So going back, I was raised in a very traditional South Indian culture at a time when gender roles were unambiguously defined and limits were set on women's aspirations. But I had the opportunity to study at top Indian universities, which really transformed my experiences, my life altogether. And growing there really helped me develop my personality and a work ethic that really assisted me in my transition to the UK at the age of 22. I was very young when I came to the UK. And in the UK, having served for more than 3 decades, in various capacities, as a researcher, as a teacher, as a senior administrator in the higher education sector, I was fortunate in 2016 to have had the opportunity to return to the Asian subcontinent, to be part of a very important project that was set to solve the problems of quality, equity, and access. And being part of this project has given me a lot of hope that these are solvable problems. I've been now, this is my 4th year as Vice-Chancellor of the Asian University for Women. And it's a liberal arts institution located in Chittagong, Bangladesh, the first of its kind. It's global in outlook, but rooted in the context and aspirations of the people of Asia. The university has educated to date, it was set up in 2008, and to date it has graduated over 2,000 students from 18 different countries, 35 nationalities, 5 religions, and it is unique. It's very unique. It's unparalleled in the region, and I would say elsewhere in the world. In a very small space, you find nearly 1,000 students of all religions, Muslims, Hindus, Christians, all in a single space. I would say it's a colorful tapestry of experiences, languages, and cultures where differences are celebrated and learned from. And the centralizing ethos of the institution is the idea that interaction with difference in a liberal arts context will prepare women to be more empathetic and change-driven leaders for their communities. So I feel very privileged to be part of this university.
Sounds very empowering and very inspiring. As we were just saying, I would love to visit one of these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You must see it for yourself.
I would love that. I know you touched on this a little bit about the vision behind the Asian University for Women. And I know also you talked a little bit about how it resonates with you, but are there more that you want to share about how just the vision and mission that drives the university kind of resonates with you personally?
Yes. The university's primary goal is to recruit from very underserved communities, if you like, bypassed communities, such as displaced women, women from ready-made garment factories, from tribal communities, from mountainous areas, from very rural areas, very marginalized, and provide them with supplementary preparatory programs. The university funds majority of its students, about 85%, via scholarships, and equipped with diverse perspectives of a liberal arts education. About 75% of AUW graduates return to their home countries. All are infused with a passion to create positive impact in their communities, in the world in general. And that's one distinctive feature. The other is university recruits a lot of faculty from abroad, from overseas. About 60% of its faculty are international, majority from the United States, Europe. And each member of the faculty is unique because they come with a particular mission. They are quite extraordinary. They're not just there to make sure the student gets the degree at the end of the day, but it's a holistic learning that they're engaged with the student. So we recruit a very special kind of faculty, if you like. And we do not compromise on any quality issues when it comes to the instrumental power of education. Job preparedness and professional education are central to AUW. It's academic choices and programming. Both in terms of my personal journey and my desire to always want to give something back to my region. AUW has been perfect. And in terms of my professional goals, all the experience that I've gained in the UK for the last 3 decades has enabled me to put it to good use. It stood me in good stead, and a perfect opportunity for me to actually contribute, give something back. So AUW does resonate very closely with my ideals, and a project that is very close to my heart. The most important thing I think here is all the girls we get, about 99%, they're all first in the families. And I was also first in the family to have gone to university. So I think there is a personal connection, which is very
so powerful and just very inspiring. Not everyone gets to have a dream job that sounds so perfect like that.
Very fortunate.
Yeah. What is the impact, you would say, I know you touched on this again a little bit, of the university individually for students, like if there's any kind of success stories that you want to share regionally and or globally?
Oh, success stories, there are hundreds. Every student has a story to tell in AUW.
Right.
So I'll keep it brief for you, but the Asian subcontinent, though not homogeneous by any means, stands in stark contrast to the Western countries that have been at the center of the debates of equity and access. The challenges for Asia are many. From a young age, girls are expected to perform far more domestic chores than boys, including caring for younger siblings. Patriarchal structures put limits on, the autonomy of women. Families are more likely to spend money on sons' education than their daughters, right? And many girls are expected to marry off very young. They are a burden in the families. They seem to be. And the focus on raising children rather than entering the workforce is an important priority. And even today, you'll find a lot of religious and social conservatism also limits women's choices in terms of where they want to study, if they are allowed to, because families are quite reluctant to send their girls to faraway places to pursue their education. So AUW's core objectives and its aim is to relieve the tenacious, if you like, issues of quality and access within higher education. And given the complex phenomenon of the Asian inequality, what AUW has done is it has tried to create a model flexible model, flexible enough to accommodate the diverse backgrounds of all these young women who come there, but who all have a common goal of overcoming the odds and, working to their aspirations. And by focusing on enterprising women who take on leadership and social justice seriously, AUW is committed to creating the next generation of women who are going to be entrepreneurs, change makers, activists who will be able to transform not only their communities, but their region and have an impact in the world. And as I said, although 75% go back to their communities, it has a ripple effect across, a multiplier effect, if you like, from the local community to the region, and globally, they make a huge impact.
I love it. I know right now we're living also in kind of unprecedented times with the global pandemic of COVID-19. And I wonder now if we can kind of switch over to how COVID-19 has impacted the university, and particularly if there's anything around the student life, or if there's been a kind of smooth or not smooth transition to kind of online studies or distance learning, or how has it kind of generally impacted the education for these women?
It's very interesting, Sylvia, because it's such a unique university in terms of the kind of student population we have. We have students from, as I said, from very poor backgrounds. And I said majority of them, as I said, are on scholarships. And they come from 18 different countries. So we have a huge challenge, not just in terms of their economic situation, but also in terms of their affordability and access and so on. And I'll classify that very briefly into three categories. In terms of teaching, we've had remarkable success. It's been because for us, maintaining a rich student experience and ensuring students do not feel isolated is very important. So this has been achieved through developing online platforms. And we've had to do that with a lot of agility, because this, as you know, the pandemic set very suddenly and didn't give much time for us all to prepare. And for a university such as this in Bangladesh, where there are considerable internet problems and problems of access and bandwidth, and we are in a very small campus and very crowded. So we've had to be very agile, and our IT team has worked wonderfully, to create these platforms. And online delivery has been extremely successful. Now, I must say, of the nearly 900 students we have, 600 had left. About 550 had already, we managed to send them back to their home countries very quickly. Borders were still open. But there were a considerable majority still on campus. And these are nearly around 380, 400 students still on campus, majority of them from Afghanistan. Now they come, and Pakistan, they come from very remote areas. So luckily for them, for us as well, we were fortunate to keep them until around 2 weeks ago when they finished their academic year. So they didn't have any real problems of accessing internet, and they still carried on online. They adapted to it very well, both staff and students. And online delivery included both synchronous and asynchronous practical classes and lectures, seminars, tutorials, and we had face-to-face interaction between faculty and students, giving them extra help. Of course, the challenges were many, because the students who left were leaving to very remote areas, which sometimes take very long journeys. So one had to make sure that, when they missed the classes, that we had to support them with extra classes and so on. But assessment, again, was a huge challenge for our faculty, because a lot of science-based subjects had laboratories work, and we had performing arts, practical work, which had to be rethought, very quickly on their feet to give alternative modes of assessment. So I'm very pleased to say the attendance from students, we are proud to say actually, the attendance was over 90%. And yes, and 97% of our graduates completed their year, and they've graduated under these circumstances.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Which has been a great tribute, I must say, to my faculty and to students. In terms of student welfare, of course, the students who remained on campus, it's a very small campus, and they've been still locked in there for the last nearly 2 months. But we have medical nurses and a doctor on site. We have security forces on site. And students are locked in. They've not been out at all. And we have food and catering, everything. All the servers are all locked in. So because of the extremes of measures that we've been able to take, luckily, we've not had any problems of infection. And I really am grateful to them for having done such a meticulous job, because you just need one case, to make the whole campus an epidemic. So that was a huge challenge, and it continues to be, because we still have around 200 students, because the borders are yet to open, and we have to send them all. But staff, staff and students are working extremely well. But the real challenge, as I said, I don't think any other university has the same problem, that we have students from 18 different countries, including one from Senegal. And how do you prepare ourselves for chartered flights for each of these groups of students. It has taken many, many women hours on all our part,
Right.
liaising with embassies, and who often give very short notice to prepare the
Mm.
students for their departure. So, but a lot of agility, a lot of imagination has gone in. And so there have been real challenges.
But it sounds like you guys have really embraced the opportunity to be nimble and to pivot and to really respond
Yeah,
amazingly.
I think, Sylvia, yes, I mean, you're absolutely right, because although the challenges seem to hit us, I must say COVID has forced all of us to reimagine
Yes.
how we deliver an engaging and holistic curriculum,
Mhm.
learning experience for students. And it's been a massive opportunity, I think, to break out of old habits and create some new, impactful, relevant modes of learning that take advantage of technology. And I think now, initially, we did have a lot of complaints and a bit of groaning and moaning, but I think now the faculty are really enjoying. We're having the summer term now entirely remotely, and it's a bit difficult because if you have to read 100 theses or 100 essays online, it is quite a challenge. It's not as easy as doing a hard copy read, but they're enjoying it. And I think one of the unintended consequences of the pandemic is that higher education, I think, will become significantly more accessible as universities start thinking as to how to grab these opportunities and go distance learning. Because distance learning, as you know, in the West, particularly in England, with which you're so familiar, is hugely advantageous to those who are unable to physically travel and access education. You can sit anywhere in the world and get the same degree.
I love it.
But
It's redesigning education or access to education to really address the equity issues. That's what it sounds like you guys have been doing, which is amazing.
absolutely. And I think we are already beginning to think what kind of courses can be actually put on distance learning, which can reach those young women in still very remote areas who are unable to actually come to Bangladesh for the social or religious or political considerations, whatever they might be. We are trying to break out of that, but there are still many problems. And I think this is something that we are already beginning to think as to how we'll deliver and also enable students to take opportunities which are presented by MOOCs and Coursera and all these courses. So we are thinking broadly, laterally, and it's something that we've not managed to do so far. But one of the challenges, of course, when you have so many students from abroad is basically, as I said, our students come from very remote areas. So access is a big problem to the internet. In remote rural areas, even if you gave them data packs, it's very difficult to actually have internet access. Without access, you can't go online anyway. And the second, apart from access, is affordability. They can't afford to purchase the additional data packs or internet. And although we are helping them, it often is a challenge. And the third important thing is the varying time zones in which all of them are spread out. So real-time learning is difficult. So we've got to make arrangements for them to be taught again. And our faculty are extremely flexible, and they've been very cooperative in going that extra mile to give this.
It sounds like COVID-19 has really impacted the university in a lot of ways, but like I said, you guys are really thinking of ways to redesign the curriculum and to make it as accessible as possible, although there's some real challenges. But I do know that just based on just kind of the demographics of your student population, that COVID-19 is probably not the first and only challenge or barrier that they've experienced. Yeah. So I just want to maybe talk a little bit about the resilience of the students that attend the university, and perhaps if you can address some other kinds of challenges. And I know you've talked a lot about kind of the rural, hard to access kind of remote student population that sometimes comes to the university, but are there others? Has that made addressing COVID easier, perhaps? What are your thoughts around that?
You're right, actually. It's a very good question because if you see the kind of situations and circumstances and backgrounds these girls come from, perhaps COVID is not really the biggest challenge for them. It's a relative.
Exactly.
It's relative, isn't it? I know it's a huge crisis we are dealing with, and the first of its kind probably in this century, in our lifetime. But sometimes when you hear the stories of these young women and their journeys before coming to AUW, you just think, COVID is for them.
Yes.
It's
like another one hits the dust.
It's just another problem that has to be addressed, and they get on with it. So their lives have been such that prepares them for all adversities and they cope with them far better than I've seen anyone, probably in the Western world, who've had the comforts and the luxuries of life. Having said that, a lot of our students who've come, I would say majority of them, as I said, come from very poor socioeconomic backgrounds. But quite apart from that, we have students who have escaped child marriages. We have students who are who are at risk in traffic communities, for example. We have students from countries like Yemen, Syria, Palestine, Afghanistan, where they've experienced at first hand the challenges of war and associated traumas and forced migration. Some of the families have had to be displaced, and many of them, these students have symptoms of, when they arrive, they have problems of post-traumatic stress disorders, and having had the first experience of war and violence and so on. But not just these, but we also have students from Vietnam, even India, and parts of Nepal and Pakistan who've experienced poverty and sometimes constraining family dynamics. So when they come to AUW, all of them have, I think you can say quite comfortably, a range of common problems when you put them all together, such as adjustment issues, culture shock, and conflicts within their friends groups. So, but they settle very quickly, I have to say. It takes them about 3 to 6 months initially, because they are completely in a different setup in a different country. And it's pretty stressful for them. I can't, I would be wrong to say otherwise. But what really gets them through, I've seen that, is they are very adamant, very headstrong, very determined. I'm saying it in a very complimentary manner, and the learning and the desire for learning runs very deep. The thirst for learning, it's unparalleled. I've not seen, having taught for 30 years in the UK system, I must say I've not seen anything like that. And those qualities, are very, very important. It gets them through these times and come out of the other side. I've not said this, but 25% of our graduates are in top elite universities doing their masters in Oxford, Cambridge. This year, 3 got into Cambridge. And we've had about a dozen from Oxford graduating with various degrees. They've gone to Johns Hopkins, NYU, name a university, and they're there in Europe, everywhere. Even in Seoul, there are about 6 girls who graduated, a couple with PhDs. We've had a couple of PhDs from Stanford and from NYU Medical School, one of them. Initially I was absolutely, it was, unbelievable. But even now, they're so extraordinary and so inspiring.
That's amazing. I mean, I was going to ask about inspiration, but I feel like this whole conversation has been so inspiring. But I wonder if you can just maybe have some closing lessons generally about these women that can perhaps inspire women globally who have maybe not gone through the kinds of experiences that they have on the front lines of war or poverty or inequity. And I just wonder if there's something that you can maybe close with in terms of what could inspire just women everywhere.
Sure. I can't help comparing my experiences of having seen young women and taught them over 3 decades in the UK. And I often ask myself, what is so distinctive and so special hits you in AUW? We know it. And as soon as I went there, you could say it. But being with them, I have realized a lot more. And it's been a steep learning experience for me, actually. Although I myself have come from very traditional culture, but I didn't experience the problems that these students have. It might be a culture shock for me to have come to the UK and have had to adjust, but that's a different kind of adjustment. Our students are extraordinary, and I'm always inspired by them. Even this is my 4th year, and it still feels very new. And there's a breath of freshness about the students that are there and those who come, whether they are first generation university entrants or overcome other kinds of obstacles to pursue their dreams of higher education. I would say this is a human project, and what it really tells us, and what I think there's a lot to take away, is a very important message. And that is, background is not an indicator of potential. I would say qualities such as courage, resilience, empathy, these are qualities that are of greater value than anything. A simple scores in maths or English, which we have in admissions test. These are qualities that really stand out. And I think most importantly, the way in which talents, even in the most unsuspecting settings, can be harnessed to great effect. And that's an important lesson. And I don't think we should underestimate anyone by virtue of their background or the settings in which they belong or they come from. That's my message.
I love that so much. And what an amazing way to end this conversation. And thank you again so much, Vice-Chancellor Rao. And I can't wait to both visit the university and meet some of these graduates, because these women just sound incredible, and they're really, I think, going to impact the world in powerful ways in the coming years.
You must really come one day. You have to see it for yourself.
I can't wait
to see what an amazing, magical place AUW is. Thank you.
Well,
thank you once
again
again for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.